Lesson number 1, The Happy Prince by Oscar Wilde. Section 3. The prince wanted the swallow to fly over the town and tell him what he saw. One day, the swallow saw two little boys sitting under a bridge trying to keep each other warm. Along came a policeman and told them to go home. He did not know that they had no home to go to. They just got up and went out hand in hand into the rain. Children, please underline the word hand in hand. When he heard this, the prince was very sad. I have no gems left, he said, but my clothes are made of gold. You must peck off a bit and give it to those poor children. Every day the swallow saw someone who needed help, and before long, all the gold on the prince had been given away. He stood on top of his pillar looking dull and grey, but the faces of poor children were no longer white. Their cheeks were red, and their thin arms and legs grew nice and round. They no longer had to beg for bread. Then the snow came. The poor little swallow got colder and colder, but he would not leave the prince. At last, he knew that his end had come. Goodbye, dear prince, he whispered as he fell at the statue's feet. Children, his end had come means he would die. Shabby means old and dirty. Goodbye, replied the prince, and something broke inside him. It was his heart. The next day, the mayor and his town councillors passed by the pillar and looked up at the statue. Children, underline the words whispered, mayor and town councillors. Dear me, how shabby our prince looks, they cried. He seems to have lost all his jewels and someone has stolen his gold clothes. And look, there's a dead bird at his feet. We can't have that here. It must be taken away at once. We'd better take the statue down too, said another councillor. Well, put up a better one in its place. Whose shall we put this time? Mine, of course, said the mayor. They took down the prince's statue and melted the lead to make the new one. But the workmen found a broken heart inside that would not melt. So they threw it on the dust heap where the little dead swallow was lying. That night, God told his angels, bring me the two most precious things in this town. They brought him the broken heart and the dead swallow. And God said, you are right. This little bird shall always sing in my garden of paradise, and the happy prince shall praise my name forever. Children, underline the words workmen, dust heap, and my garden of paradise. This is our story, children. The end of section 3. Now let's see some more new words. Hand in hand. Join hands as a mark of affection. His end had come. He would die. Shabby, old and dirty. Whispered, speak very softly. Mayor, head of a town or a city. Councillors, the members of local government. Workmen, men employed to do manual labor. Manual means children with hands, they do work. Garden of paradise means heaven. Now let's see some question answers from this story, children. Why was the prince crying? The prince was crying because of all the sad things he could see from his place on a tall pillar in the middle of the town. To whom did the prince want to give the first blue gem from his eye, and why? The prince wanted the swallow to take the first blue gem from his eye to a young man who was so cold and hungry that he could not even hold a pen. To whom did the prince want to give the second blue gem from his eye, and why? The prince wanted the swallow to take the second blue gem from his eye to the poor girl who was selling matches. He wanted to help her because he knew that she had dropped her matches on the wet ground and would be scolded by her father if she returned home empty handed. Why did the swallow decide to stay with the prince? The swallow decided to stay with the prince because he was a noble and kind soul and wanted to help the prince. Once the prince gave away the gems in both his eyes, he became blind, and only the swallow could serve as his eyes by flying around the town and telling the prince what it saw. Thank you, children.